Hey, welcome back. It's a quiet night here in New York, and I'm looking out my window at this city's own particular constellation of lights. Each one feels like a story. Some are stories of triumph, some of quiet struggle, and a very few, are stories that snuff out, leaving behind a darkness so profound it becomes a legend. That's what we're talking about today. A story not from these streets, but from the sun-bleached boulevards of Los Angeles. A story that became a ghost haunting Hollywood itself. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Underworld Kings, The Rise and Fall. And in our entire catalog, few cases embody the fall more tragically or mysteriously than the one we're diving into today. The death of Elizabeth Short, forever known as the Black Dahlia. Let's set the scene. January 15th, 1947. Los Angeles. A mother named Betty Bersinger is walking her young daughter through a then vacant lot in the Limerick Park neighborhood. She sees what she thinks is a discarded store mannequin. As she gets closer, the horror comes into focus. It's not a mannequin. It's the body of a young woman, severed cleanly at the waist, drained of blood, and posed with a terrifying, deliberate care. Her face was slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating that grotesque, permanent Glasgow smile. The scene was so surgically brutal, so inhumanly clean, that the first officers on the scene suspected a medical student or a doctor. This was Elizabeth Short. She was 22 years old. Now, the press descended, and they didn't just report the crime, they created a myth. They seized on a nickname Elizabeth had apparently been called a few times in life, inspired by a film noir called The Blue Dahlia. The Black Dahlia was born. Papers painted her as a Hollywood aspirant, a femme fatale, a woman of loose morals who ran with a dangerous crowd. This narrative was seductive, but it was largely fiction. In reality, Elizabeth Short was a complex young woman from a small town in Massachusetts who had a difficult family life and was chasing a vague dream of something better in California. She wasn't a starlet. She was, by many accounts, a bit lost, moving between friends' couches and brief romances. The press turned her into a symbol, and in doing so, they made solving her murder almost impossible. The sensational headlines attracted over 50 false confessions, clogged police lines with useless tips, and buried any real evidence under a mountain of tabloid fantasy. The investigation itself was a perfect storm of early forensic limitations and overwhelming public pressure. The LAPD, led by the determined but overwhelmed Chief Thad Brown, had a corpse but no crime scene. That vacant lot was just a dumping ground. They had no murder weapon, no witnesses to the actual killing, and a victim whose last days were a confusing patchwork of sightings. They did have leads, though. One of the most compelling was a man named Dr. George Hodel. A prominent physician with a sophisticated, wealthy lifestyle, Hodel moved in elite circles. Years after the murder, his own son, an LAPD homicide detective named Steve Hodel, would become convinced of his father's guilt, pointing to cryptic comments in recorded conversations and his father's known, disturbing psychosexual proclivities. The surgical precision of the bisection always pointed to medical knowledge. But in 1947, without concrete evidence, he was just another person of interest. And then there was the letter, or rather, the letters. The killer, or someone claiming to be the killer, began a twisted correspondence with the press and police. The most infamous was a letter sent to the Los Angeles Examiner, made from cut-out words and letters glued to a page. It read, "Here is Dahlia's belongings," and it contained Elizabeth's birth certificate, her social security card, photographs, and an address book. But here's the chilling detail. The address book had one page neatly torn out. The police believed that page likely contained the killer's contact information. It was a taunt, a game. The writer also promised to turn himself in, but only if the paper printed the letter on its front page with the headline, "Dahlia Killer Cracks." They did. He never did. This is where the case stops being a simple murder and becomes a cultural black hole. Because the story offered everything the public imagination craved: a beautiful victim, a Hollywood connection, a sadistic, intelligent killer, and an unsolvable puzzle. It spawned endless theories. Was it a powerful surgeon? A wealthy socialite like Hodel? Was it connected to the other, similar lone woman murders in LA at the time? Or was it, as some later authors suggested, someone even more mundane, a jealous boyfriend, a random psychopath the police interviewed and let go? The lack of a resolution created a vacuum, and that vacuum has been filled with decades of speculation, books, documentaries, and wild accusations. Elizabeth Short, the person, vanished, and the Black Dahlia, the legend, took her place. Sitting here, thinking about this from my perspective as an engineer and a storyteller, what strikes me isn't just the brutality, but the system failure. It's a case study in how not to handle an investigation. The contamination of the narrative by the press was catastrophic. Imagine trying to debug a complex piece of software while thousands of people are shouting incorrect commands at you, and the original error code has been rewritten by a tabloid. The LAPD was trying to solve a forensic puzzle in a pre-DNA era, while also playing a public relations game against a media frenzy they couldn't control. The core truth, the life and death of Elizabeth Short, got lost in the noise. We became obsessed with the who and the how, and completely abandoned the who she was. She became a prop in her own story. And that, I think, is the real tragedy that outlives the mystery. A young woman arrives in a city built on dreams. She struggles, she hopes, she meets the wrong person, and she dies in the most horrific way imaginable. And then, the city that failed to protect her consumes her. It strips her of her identity, her humanity, and turns her into a brand for selling newspapers and, later, books and movies. The greatest injustice of the Black Dahlia case isn't just that the killer walked free. It's that we, the public, allowed the victim to be erased and replaced by a myth. We are complicit in that. So, what are we left with, nearly 80 years later? A cold case file that is officially still open, though likely frozen forever. A name that is shorthand for Hollywood noir and unsolved crime. And a reminder that some stories don't have clean endings. Some mysteries are knots that time tightens rather than loosens. The Black Dahlia case is a dark mirror held up to our own fascination with the macabre, our desire for a satisfying plot, and our willingness to forget the human being at the center of the storm. For Elizabeth Short, there was no rise, only a catastrophic, brutal fall. And for us, the audience to this history, the lesson is to look past the legend, to remember the person, not just the puzzle. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd share this episode with someone else who loves deep dives into history's shadows. For more from me, Ibnul J. Farabi, and the entire team, you can find all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. This has been Underworld Kings, The Rise and Fall, a production of Light Knot Studios. Visit us at lightknotstudios.com. Until next time, take care.